Hello Internet, my name is Ryan Ingram, and today we're going to talk about how to make money in real estate investing. So we're going to go over the four main ways of how to do that, or the four main ways that real estate really benefits you, and then afterwards we're going to talk about the nuances and implications of those. Because one of the things that I really want to clear up is the fact that real estate investing is not a one-size-fits-all strategy. I think it's comparable to the fitness industry, where you can train to run a marathon, or you can train to bench press 400 or 500 pounds. The two look completely different, and the two have completely different daily routines, daily activities, and thought processes behind those. But nonetheless, there are still the key variables that have to happen on a daily basis. So the first way to make money in real estate investing is the most widely talked about, which is cash flow. Now, cash flow is pretty simple to explain. It's the income minus expenses, whatever's left, the profit of that property on a monthly basis. So if you have a single family home that rents out for $1,000 a month and your expenses are $600 a month, then your cash flow is $400. Now, cash flow is something that you can pretty well calculate. So I have recorded a video on how to calculate numbers on a rental property. I suggest that you start there, but really there are several different ways to calculate numbers on a rental property, and you should do your research and figure out which way best works with your brain and how you can regularly calculate, and then just do it persistently. Just make it a goal to calculate at least one rental property per day. Now, some of these things are factual, like insurance, taxes, and others are your best guess, like capital expenditures, repairs and maintenance, vacancy. You're not going to know what these things truly are, but you're going to put a guess in there as to what they are, and whatever is left is your cash flow. Now, this cash flow portion is what a lot of people online use to kind of entice people into real estate investing in hopes of retiring early, or just increasing your overall income, quitting your job, whatever it may be. But each person has their own why as to why real estate investing would be a great investment in their portfolio. So whether your goal is to be wealthy 30 or 40 years from now, or leave your job next month, everybody is going to have a different strategy on how they interact with cash flow. Now, the second way are the tax benefits. Now, tax benefits are a really cool part of real estate investing. If you purchase a property, leveraged or not, you're able to depreciate that property over the next 27.5 years. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm a CPA. You should reach out to one. I'm not even going to pretend like I know really what CPAs do, but I highly suggest that you reach out to a CPA, talk to them, and together put together some sort of strategy in which you can use real estate investing to benefit your taxable situation. Okay, now the third way to make money in real estate investing is appreciation. Now, appreciation is really hard to calculate in a deal because, again, you're really just guessing. On average, I think historically, just across the nation, the average rate of appreciation on real estate investing is about 4% per year. So if you purchased a $100,000 property this year, then next year you can assume that it would be worth around $104,000. However, the people that invest in areas that appreciate a lot, like the Californias and New Yorks of the world, you are really hoping and betting on the fact that those areas are going to continue to increase over time. So over the term, if you have your 30 or 40 year goggles on, if you're going to own a property for that long, then you can assume that when you get ready to sell it 30 to 40 years from now, the value is going to be much greater. Now, I've recorded one video called the wealth formula, and it's really just the future value of a dollar formula and how to calculate that. And you could use that same formula for what your property would be worth in 30 years if it were to appreciate at a rate of 4%. Appreciation is less helpful in markets like mine in the Midwest, because the Midwest isn't necessarily known for its appreciation. We've experienced a lot of it over the past year and a half or so. However, historically, you can look back to the 2000s and the 90s on the auditor's website at all of the previous sales, and they are very comparable to what properties are still selling for. So on this one, it's really important to know your market and understand what goes into appreciation, and a lot of real estate investors just kind of consider appreciation to be the cherry on top. They don't count on it, they don't include it in their calculations. It's just there to make an already good deal even better over the long term. But the last part is very easy to calculate, and all loans come with it. So if you are choosing to use leverage on a rental property, and when I say leverage, I really just mean that you're borrowing money from someone else, albeit a person or a bank, and you are agreeing to pay it down over X number of years at X interest rate, right? So 20 years, 5%, 30 years, 3%, any of those, you can have an amortization schedule, and you're gonna know each month how much interest you're paying down and how much principal you're paying down. And all of the principal that is paid down is money saved for you, which is the fourth way, principal pay down. Now I want to concentrate really hard because I always use the wrong principle when I'm writing this out, because in my head I learned somewhere that principal is your friend in the school system. And principal, PLE, is what is used all of the other times. But I don't think that's true. I think the principal that you pay down is also your buddy, just not in the school system in your bank account. So essentially, if you are borrowing $100,000 over 30 years, then 30 years from now, you're going to have an asset that's free and clear that is worth more than $100,000. And that is the power of principal paydown. Now, when you couple that with appreciation, there's a really cool chart that you can look at where the property over time, it increases in value, and the amount that you owe on the property decreases in value. Not decreases in value, but the loan amount decreases. So you are now gaining a lot of equity here. So at some point, this is going to be zero, and then this is going to be whatever it is. So let's just say this is 160,000. So over time, right here, you might only have $10,000 or $20,000 in equity. And when you get to the end of the chart, now you have $160,000 that is yours in equity. So you can borrow against that, you can sell that and put it in your pocket. You could sell that and do what's called a 1031 exchange, where you promise to pay the government the taxes later, not currently. But nonetheless, that goes into real estate investing strategies, and that is beside the point from this. So the point that I want to make in the 4 ways of how to make money is this is real estate investing. There are a lot of different strategies that you can use for this. If you want to retire early, is what a lot of people say that they want to use real estate for, then cash flow is really important, because that's the amount of money that you're going to be able to put in your pocket and spend on a monthly basis. Now, that is a little bit more of a risky thing to do, in my opinion, because there are going to be some months, regardless of the number of rental properties that you have, you can stand to spend more money than you bring in because of roofs, foundation issues. We had a basement wall collapse sometime in February, which cost us to spend about $20,000 that we weren't expecting on. And at the time, that $20,000 was greater than the amount of money that we brought in. So that month we were negative, and we have a good number of properties. So all that to say, I don't necessarily think real estate investing is the greatest avenue of retiring early. Depending on the market that you're in, the way that you're leveraged, you can do it, but I don't necessarily think it's the easiest thing to do, because you stand to have months where you're in the negatives. So if you are using real estate investing to retire early, then what do you do when you have negative months? Do you have such a large reserve that you're just able to slowly, at your own pace, refill that after you spend that money? Or do you live on a credit card? I don't know the answer to this. This is something that you have to think to yourself. Because if you have $10,000 in your bank account and you see that the cash flow on 10 properties could replace your monthly income, then you still have a really long way to go. So this isn't necessarily like a retire early thing. Now, sure, it's going to be quicker than your 30-year career. You might be able to do this in 5 or 10 years, but nonetheless, real estate investing isn't necessarily your only focus. You also have to increase your access to capital and increase your own personal reserves. Now, everybody can stand to benefit from tax benefits because of the way that real estate and the tax laws are written. So I think that the tax benefits, regardless of how few properties or how many properties you have, is a great thing. And I know several high net worth individuals, like 10 million plus, they're a very high income earning individual. So they buy real estate, they buy a lot of real estate, not for the cash flow, not for the appreciation, and not even for the principal pay down, but they just are trying to not pay so much money in taxes. Now, I can't relate to those individuals yet. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think if I were in that position, I would be buying real estate just to write it off in taxes. I would still want to make sure that there's a healthy balance of these other three things, but nonetheless, that is a strategy that some people can do. Now, if you're an investor that loves investing for cash flow, then you hate hearing about people that invest for appreciation because in the cash flow investor's perspective, appreciation is very speculative because appreciation relies on the market, which are variables that are outside of your control, which in turn could go up, but it could just as easily go down. So if you're investing strictly for appreciation and the property doesn't necessarily cash flow, so if you're losing money on a monthly basis, just for the privilege of owning that property in hopes that in the future it will appreciate greatly, then you could benefit from that. That might be a viable strategy if you are in the right market. But what if that market doesn't appreciate? And sure, you're still going to have the principal pay down and the tax benefit, so it might not necessarily be a wash, but at the same time, it's kind of like investing in the stock market. It could go up, it could just as easily go down. So cash flow is by and large regarded as the safer route when investing in real estate investing. All this to say, I really just want to point out that cash flow is a great thing, but so is appreciation. And it is possible to build a strategy on real estate investing that revolves completely around appreciation and still be a really good idea. Now, principal paydown is a lot like investing for the taxes. It's pretty much guaranteed if you have a loan. And the coolest part about principal paydown on rental properties is the monthly payment that you're making doesn't come from your own pocket. It comes from your resident, your tenant, whatever you want to call them. It comes from their pocket. So they pay you $1,000 a month in rent. Your mortgage payment is $600. Then that $600 didn't come out of your pocket, but you set something up. You set up a system to where somebody else is on a monthly basis putting money in your pocket. And that is really cool. So if you have 100 properties and you're experiencing principal paydown on 100 properties, then that is going to be exponential over time. Now, if you ever hear the term forced savings account as being the reason that a lot of people love real estate investing, then they're talking about the principal paydown, because on a monthly basis, if you've borrowed money, whether you want to or not, that principal is being paid down. So that is increasing the amount of equity that you have because your loan balance is decreasing over time. Now, I don't necessarily like viewing properties as a forced savings account because it neglects these other three things, but that could still be a very viable strategy for investing in real estate depending on the other variables and your circumstances of your life. So all of this to say that these are the components of real estate investing. This is what real estate investing is made of. So this is REI, real estate investing. There is no right or wrong way to go about real estate investing. It ultimately comes down to your personal preference. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the way that a marathon runner trains is going to be completely different than the way a powerlifter trains. And when a powerlifter reaches his peak performance, he will not be able to run a marathon. Similarly, if you can run a marathon, then the chances of you being a successful powerlifter are very slim. There's no right or wrong. It's not better to be a marathon runner than it is to be a powerlifter. They're just two completely different subsects of the same fitness industry, and real estate investing is no different. So to break it down even further, and I get that all analogies break down at a certain point, but let's go back to the marathon and the powerlifter. The powerlifter, inside of powerlifting, you're going to have people that prefer to get their proteins from chicken, people that prefer to get their protein from red meat, and people that prefer to get their protein from being a vegan. I mean, there's no right or wrong. It's just personal preference, which is what real estate investing is. Personal preference. So if you go through the Deals Explained playlist where I talk about all of the deals that I've done and you find yourself being uncomfortable with the way that I do things, that's perfectly okay. It doesn't make me wrong. It doesn't make you right. It's just a difference in personal preference. I'm not going to pivot what I'm doing, and you shouldn't allow what I'm doing to influence what you're doing, because we're in completely different financial situations. We're in completely different places in our lives. And ultimately, you have to choose the combination of these four things that's going to most benefit you and get you closer to your why. Because at the end of the day, real estate investing is a tool to get you closer to your why. So if your why is retiring early, if your why is paying your kids college, if your why is to, in 40 years, look back and have a portfolio worth $1 billion, whatever it is, use these as a tool to get you closer to your goal, get you closer to your lifelong why. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, comment below. I will answer all comments. Thanks so much. Look forward to talking to you guys soon.